It's Belgian.
Belgian.
Too many consonants in there, CKX.
Yeah, so Michael Marckx, we're here. Thank you for taking time to sit down with us.
Sure.
Really, really appreciate it.
I'm happy you're here.
Yeah, it's good to see you. It's been a little bit, but...
Yeah, a year goes by fast, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy that it's already April. Years fly. Almost April.
It's scaring me.
Yeah. So we'll get right into this. Like I was talking to you about before, this whole show is about helping people find their direction. And so I know for you, to kind of go on the earlier part of your life, when you were, I believe, 23, you had officially got signed to the Olympic, or the U.S. triathlon team.
Well, I raced on the U.S. national team. I won the World Amateur Championships around the same time, and then I turned pro, and that was all within that, right after college, that sort of thing.
And so you were doing that, and then at night you were just playing with your bands and
playing music and not sleeping much, but drinking a lot. So that's a good combo. Drinking a lot, sometimes not going home, going straight to the pool for a 6 a.m. workout. So there's lots of times that I didn't go to sleep, did the pool workout, and then either went home and rode the bike or took a nap. Sobered up a bit and then trained later in the day.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was it. I ran about 5 days a week. I rode about 6 days a week, and I swam every day.
Jesus. Was just curious, was there anything when you were growing up, like I know you ran your first marathon when you were 12. I believe you have 2 older brothers. They ran theirs first when they were 8. Like, was there anything that you did when you were young that was like a major moment that you were like, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, because of any distinctive moments, or did you?
Yeah, there were definitely moments where I was like, yeah, I'm never doing that again. Yeah. But my parents were really cool in that they allowed us to do whatever we wanted, and I was the oldest of 4, so I ran my first marathon when I was 12, which isn't saying much because my brothers did it when they were 8 and 9 years old.
12 is pretty good.
But all 6 of us were marathon runners, and my dad was a marathon runner, and so it was just sort of a normal thing. But I remember my dad saying to me when I was about 12, he was talking about all these other kids that were running the Palos Verdes Marathon when we grew up.
Right. And
he spoke of them with such admiration, it made me go, well, geez, I wish my dad would, be proud of me like he is these other punks. Totally. So it didn't take me very long to figure out that I should run the PB Marathon that year, but I only had about a month to train, maybe a little bit more, like 6 weeks, I think. So I trained a few times and then ran the marathon and did it. And it was, it was fun, it was a good experience, and then that led to, I've run 45 marathons now as an old man, so I'm broken down and decrepit as a result of it. But those early inspirations came by way of my parents saying, yeah, so what? Johnny's 8 years old, but he can run the marathon, it's no big deal. And it's like no one was, whipping him, telling him to get out there and train. It's like, right. You're capable of doing anything you want. We're all doing it, come along. My dad would grab a tennis ball and say, hey, let's go for a run. And my brothers and I would run with my dad, passing the tennis ball around. Or, exploring trails near our house. And it was more of an adventure. It was this lifestyle thing. It wasn't like we were going out to run so that we could, best our 10,000 meter PR or whatever. But eventually it migrated to, hey, how fast can I run this marathon? So, you sort of go from 4 hours as a 12-year-old, and then by 14, I was running in the 240s.
Jeez.
And, you just keep testing yourself, like how much faster can I go at this thing? But I think the important thing here is I was also skateboarding and traveling around and competing and getting out of school to go do exhibitions at the same time, the same year in the 7th grade and the 8th grade. I was playing soccer at a high level, and I played all the way through college, but I also swam and raced my bike. These are things because my parents were like, yeah, you can do whatever you want, we'll support you. And so we all did a lot of rad things. Yeah. Like I surfed my brains out too, and paddled long distances and did things that other kids would be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But we just had this adventurous mindset that was supported by what our parents were trying to cultivate into us, which is the idea of, yeah, you can do anything.
Huh.
You know?
Was there anything that made like marathons stick out more than soccer or surfing or skating? Like all these other things, seems like you're pretty good at a lot of things. So like, what made you specifically choose that route?
Good question. So for me, I was terribly asthmatic and really pathetic human specimen around that time. And my doctor was saying to my parents, you need to move to Arizona, be in an environment that will be more accommodating to his, weak lungs. And my dad was like, hell no, we're not moving. I'm just gonna make him run. And my dad would literally say, we're gonna make your lungs stronger. And he'd say, go out and run. But it wasn't like a forced thing. Like he was saying, like, here's a pill for you. And the pill is go run to Ridgecrest and back, and then go run to St. John Fisher and back, and then go run to the fire station and back. And so that's what I did. And I was doing that under the idea that I was gonna build my lungs up like they were some sort of a muscle. But I was taking all sorts of terrible medicine that, stunted my growth and did weird things, and it was really disgusting. But eventually they invented medicine that's you can live with.
Right.
But I outgrew the asthma, and probably around the age of 40, it just stopped. I don't know why, but that was the impetus. And then I had some success with it, like running that fast of a marathon that placed me at the top of the age group in terms of national marathon runners. So that's kind of cool, like being at the top of that list. So again, how much further can I take this? But at the same time, I was playing the drums and playing soccer and surfing and skateboarding. So none of it, I didn't apply the practice and discipline that now kids are confronted with. My kids play soccer, which means they're not playing baseball and all the other sports, right? They're focused, and it's 24/7, and it's virtually every day of the week. For me, soccer season ended, then it was baseball season, it was basketball season, so I was playing all of them. That's not the reality of today.
Right, you gotta kind of zone in today.
You gotta focus. And I do remember an anecdote when I was, in my early 20s, I got hit by a car after I turned pro, and about 18 months of rehab, and then was trying to come back from that. And that's when during that time when I was on the U.S. national team, that's when I met Lance Armstrong, and then we were on the same team, so to speak. And he and I went for a ride one day, and I made him cut it short, and he was pissed at me. And when we got back to the Helms Bakery building in Culver City, he said, man, you gotta choose. You're either gonna be an athlete or a musician.
Dang.
He's like, he's like 8 years younger than me. It's like telling me what's up.
And
you gotta
Lance,
focus. And he had to become the Lance Armstrong that we know, but it wasn't too much later that he won his first world championship or his only world championship as a cyclist. But he was right. But he was also a drummer, on the side, like he liked to play the drums. So I know there was kind of a funny connection for him, because I was playing at the Whiskey A Go-Go that day. So I had to go and sound check, and that's why I had to cut the ride short.
Right.
And he's like, kind of angry about that.
Because you were excelling at both.
Well, let's just say I was doing both, right? Like I'm playing at the Whiskey A Go-Go, but I'm also, racing my bike or being a tri-geek. So I guess that goes back to there's this conundrum of you can do anything, and then we all do lots of things.
Yeah.
And then hopefully in the course of doing lots of things, you matriculate through one or two of them, and you find out that you're really good at them. Or perhaps you love it, so you become good at it.
Right.
And then you can focus on doing that thing. For me, I struggled because I never thought of myself as being a business person like I am now.
Right.
Because that's what my dad did. I wanted to be an athlete or a musician, or preferably both. So for me, it kind of settled on bike racing and being a triathlete, and then being the drummer. So those things don't jive well. They don't.
Right.
They're not mutually supporting or reinforcing each
staying
other.
up all night playing music and then
Yeah.
writing.
It's not the best practice.
Huh.
So, but for me, I always wanted to do those things, and so I stayed doing them, and that's what gave me my career. That's what ended up slotting me into the industry that I've worked in, which is the sports world, but action sports and sports, whether it's cycling or surfing or skateboarding, snowboarding. So by approaching those two things and having them be equal parts in my life, they actually informed my decision making and the places that I went and ultimately where I ended up as a professional, although I think we would have to use that word loosely with me.
Right.
It's that I was applying the things that I loved to the places that I was working, and that played to my advantage. So melding sports, putting on events, and music into something that eventually became a career for me.
Yeah. Cool. And so, like you mentioned earlier, you said you were 24, I think, and you got hit by a car.
23, yeah. So just out of college and doing well, and then just in the blink of an eye, like taken out.
Life change.
Yeah.
And so I know for you, I'm sure it was like a struggle recovering. They told you, I believe you couldn't be a triathlete anymore, like all this bad news.
Well, at that time, I went to go work for my main sponsor. So I went from racing for them to working in the warehouse, packing boxes.
Yeah.
Literally like packing boxes and sending to Lance Armstrong.
Dang.
And so it was sort of a rude awakening. I couldn't race or train anymore. And I'm stuck in the warehouse. But I thought, well, I'm in the warehouse, I'm gonna do the best job I can.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna use my weird ability to remember things. And I just memorized the catalog, and I knew every number of every product and where it was. And so I organized the whole warehouse of this brand to my liking so that I could efficiently run it. And all the while I was kind of bugging the principals of the company, like, hey, your marketing sucks.
Yeah.
You guys, like, I'm 23, I'm your target customer, and you aren't speaking to me.
Yeah.
And I would bug them to let me help guide their messaging,
Right.
which ultimately they let me do. So I went back to racing and being an ambassador and then informing their marketing. But what happened soon thereafter was I'm still working in the warehouse. My sister got me a birthday present to go see a psychic.
Yeah. Interesting.
So I had never been. So I drove to Beverly Hills, this nice house, and this beautiful lady answers the door and takes me into her den. And then she starts off by, before we get going, I just want you to know your dad's gonna survive. He's gonna be fine. And she didn't know anything about me.
Right.
I'm just some long-haired dude with a nose ring. Drove up in his VW van, and she's telling me my dad's gonna live. Like, how does she know I have a dad?
Yeah.
So,
And then he's sick.
so he was really sick, and he did end up surviving. He's still alive and thriving. But that was sort of disarming for her to start off that way. And then she just rattled off things about me that were just, crazy psychic shit. And she went through this whole thing with me, and then eventually she's like, well, you don't want to hear this, but you're never going to be a great athlete again. I mean, you're never going to be a world champion again. You will be a great athlete, but not at that level. And the bands that you're in, one of them's going to go on to great success, but you're not going to be in it, which is totally true. And the other one that I thought was going to have the great success totally imploded, just as she said it would. There were so many other things she said, but then at the end of it, she's like, this is disappointing to you, but I just want you to know you're going to be tremendously successful in business. And I was like, business? That,
Yeah.
no, it's either gonna be athletics or music, or both. But she's like, no, I'm sorry. And then she said, and tomorrow, you're gonna get a call from a guy whose name begins with an S, and he's got brown hair down to about his shoulders. He's gonna call you and offer you a job, and you have to accept that job. So I was like, what?
Yeah.
And then sure enough, the next day, dude calls, his name is Scott, I know who he is. He offers me this rad job.
Yeah.
It's just crazy uncanny. I took it, and that was the beginning of my career that melded music, sports, marketing, the things that I loved, storytelling essentially.
Yeah.
And that was really the beginning of my career.
I know on that topic too, you talk, like in some of the speeches you've given, you talk about how what you believe about yourself is one of the most powerful things. And so I know for you, I can imagine that at that point when this psychic lady says you're going to be successful in business, this dude's going to call you and he calls you, all of a sudden it's like, all right, well, some random dude's going to call me. I probably should believe everything else she said.
Totally.
And I'm sure that played a crazy part in like how you are where you are today in your life and your success. And I'm curious for people out there that maybe aren't going to go see a psychic or don't have a psychic that's as incredible as this lady.
Yeah.
Because that helped you find your direction so much and what you wanted to do in your life, do you have any like tips on how other people could find their direction and start to build the belief about themselves that could guide them?
No, that's too hard of a question.
That's fair.
No, you're right, like we don't have a psychic that we can go to. So
Yeah.
the psychic started off by telling me something there's no way she could know.
Yeah.
Telling me that it was gonna be fine. And then revealing things about me that there's no way she could know because this is before Al Gore had invented the internet. So there's just no way she could have Googled me. So I had the benefit of a psychic that I believed in now because she told me things that I should believe. And then, made this incredible prediction about something that would happen the next day, which is just crazy. So I had the benefit of belief that this is going to work out. Now, I didn't want to become a business person. I still don't. But I had a strong belief now, this is what I'm going to become. So I'm going to start applying myself in ways that will make that come true, while still holding on to the things that I love, like still playing music, and still, to this day, I still race my bike at a high level. So I've kept those things in my life, but they're these are just certain eggs in my basket where there's many eggs and they're not just one big egg. So to answer your question, for people, especially young people, you don't have the benefit of a psychic telling you that it's all going to work out and the things that you like to do are going to take you somewhere and this is all going to be magical and some guy named Scott's going to offer you a rad job tomorrow. But you don't really need a psychic because what she was just telling me is keep doing the things that you love to do and they will take you in the direction that you want to go. So if we know what we love to do, and like for instance, around that same time, my early 20s, I worked at IBM. It was like my first real job and it was miserable. And so I learned that I never want to be in an environment like that where everyone's, shit talking each other and trying to undermine people and their culture. So there's certain things I knew that I didn't want to do. But if you kind of know what you like to do, like if you know that you want to tell stories or if you know that you want to be in service to others and that your North Star is to be some great storyteller or some great person in service to others, providing value to people that otherwise wouldn't be provided, then you can take the steps towards that. As long as you're always reminding yourself that I'm doing this right now, but I'm headed over here, then you let your decisions about the jobs that you take or the people that you hang out with or the concerts that you go to or the churches you attend, you you make those decisions based on where you're headed,
Right.
and not on as some ephemeral or short-lived decision that's, you know, cool right now, but it takes you in the wrong direction.
Right.
So as long as you have your head up, instead of having your head down all the time and then you bump into things and you make the wrong decision, having your head up about where you want to go, and always like having a wide periphery on the landscape that's in front of you,
Right.
and sort of knowing that that hill that I'm going to is slightly to my right and up, then you're constantly going towards that. And it allows you to make decisions that you wouldn't otherwise make. Because then it's
Right.
easy to make wrong decisions. Like, oh, this job pays me 10 grand more a year, I'm gonna take it, even though it doesn't, I don't like the brand, and I'm not really that jazzed on the position.
Right.
As opposed to this job over here, I'm gonna be able to utilize the things that I love. I'm not gonna make that much at first,
Right.
but I can apply myself in loving and tender ways to support and nurture that culture or that idea or that initiative that then allows me to be headed in the direction I want to go.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to sacrifice the dollars initially,
Right. To get to your ultimate goal.
and ultimately sometimes we don't get rich off of the things that give us the most pleasure, but I'd much rather end up happy, well fed, and edified by the things that I'm doing, as opposed to strangely rich. I know they did a study not that long ago that said basically at like 85K a year, that's kind of the sweet spot that we all kind of need to make to have our basics covered. But beyond that, you know, you add tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars, it doesn't bring you any additional happiness. You know, that's the trapping that people think, oh, if I get that, if I can buy that second house, or if I can buy that version of the Range Rover, or whatever their fancy is, they think that happiness comes by way of that, and it just doesn't. And I know that because I've read all the right books and listened to the right people, but I've also made those mistakes, like buy the rad house and then realize I'm no happier, and I'm struggling for the mortgage.
Yeah.
Buy the fancy car and think you're gonna be some baller dude, and people are just kind of laughing at you.
Yeah.
So happiness isn't always predicated on what that annual salary is.
Yeah. Huh. Is there anything specifically you tell your kids to help them find their North Star?
Yeah, I just encourage them to what my parents encouraged us to do, which is find that which you love and keep doing that. So I encourage my kids to do as many crazy and different things as possible. You know, they're ensconced in this whole soccer culture, but my son loves to surf.
Right.
And he surfs on the team, but it's not about competition for him. He'll wake up and go surf at 5:30 in the morning, not even with his friends, just because he loves that escape.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping he carries that with him, and that's always going to be an escape for him. It doesn't need to be some artistic expression, it's just an escape.
Yeah.
So my daughter loves to sing and play music, and we always encourage that. And before it was dancing, but with them, I always remind them, just as my parents did, you can do anything.
Yeah.
You can become anything you want, and we're just here to remind you of that. And if you tell us what you want to do, we'll find a way to help you make that come. Yeah.
Very cool. And so I know another thing you talk about is fulfillment and happiness, and kind of that those are like two major important things in your life, and that happiness, I believe you said it, is not the destination, but it's the journey to the destination. And I feel like in today's world, we're almost put in a society where, for people around my age, we're supposed to have everything figured out, or at least we think we are.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, like, what would your advice be on focusing less on stressing that you need to have everything figured out, and more so focus on just enjoying the journey and understanding that, you know, eventually things will work out?
Our culture always tells us that, oh, I'll be happy when I graduate, Or I'll be happy when I get an A.
Yeah.
I'll be happy when I win that race. I'll be happy when I get a 15-20 on the SAT for my son's a junior. So like there's these things where we tell ourselves we'll be happy when we get that promotion.
Right.
And that's just the wrong way to live, because you should be happy on your way to that promotion. And in fact, if you're happy and engaged and living a fulfilled life, that promotion will happen much more easily. Just as the 15-20 on the SAT or winning the race, whatever the goal is that you think is going to be signifier of your happiness,
Right.
it's actually all the steps that you're taking towards it that are the happiness. Because then when that day actually comes, it's a sort of a letdown, right? Like you win a big race and you think about, well, what's the next race? You don't even take a moment to
Enjoy it.
Yeah, because somehow it doesn't have the same luster anymore.
Right. There was more.
When the happiness is really like, when I get up in the morning, I still like spring up like, my God, I'm gonna go ride my bike or I'm gonna go surf. And those are things that bring me enjoyment and balance in my life. And then I go to work and try and deliver as much as I can, be in service to the brands or people that I work with. So having those things that we enjoy and love be a part of our lives, those are the things that make us happy. And again, it's not the finish line, the graduation or the promotion. It's that you're going someplace you want to go.
Right.
And we've all like lived through I can't wait till summer as a kid so I can be lazy and just go to the beach or whatever. We always put these things on ourselves that, well, that's when it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's not the case.
Yeah. And ultimately, like, you're in control. Like, when you reach that goal, you're the person that decides you're happy then. So it's like, why not make that decision now?
Totally. Like, orient your life towards the moments that are in front of you, not behind, that you can be productive, engaged, and heading in that direction that you want to go.
Yeah.
We always feel better when we're looking down the road and there isn't any barricade in front of us, right? There's this open road of possibility. That's what happiness is. Like if you look at it that way, happiness is a road where you're unimpeded to go where you want to go.
Right.
So remove the barricades, remove the dark thoughts, remove the things that get in the way of heading quite swiftly and deftly towards that destination that you believe is your ultimate destination. But remember, it's getting there that's the happiness, not actually being there.
Right. Not waiting till you achieve
Yeah.
that. Huh. Another question I had too is, so I know you taught at San Marcos, correct? For a bit?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so when you taught there, I'm sure you run into the seniors and things like that, people that are transitioning from school to quote unquote the real world.
Yeah.
And I was curious, was there any like tips or anything you give those people as they transition into that? Because I know for a lot of people it's, I think our entire life we're taught you go to school, you get good grades, you go to college, you graduate, and then you get a high paying job. And it's almost painted to like, you're taught exactly what to do until you graduate college, and it's like this cliff you fall off of.
Yeah, and you're gonna be happy when you graduate. You're gonna be happy when you get that job. You're gonna, right? But no, it doesn't work that way. So this may not answer your question, but this is what I'd like to say.
Yeah.
Which is, when you are entering the real world, so you have to think about this in advance of entering the real world, is you have to be able to communicate. And that doesn't mean that you're really clever with your text messages with your boys or the slang that you use on Instagram. Those are fun things too to have in your arsenal, but being able to articulate your vision, your ideas to whether it's someone that may be willing to let you enter that college, or may be willing to hire you, or may be willing to coach you.
Yeah.
You have to be able to expertly present your idea that's compelling. And you have to be able to do that in a formal letter, like learn how to spell, learn how to punctuate, learn how to break up your ideas and create an arc to a story, and learn how to present that live. Learn how to orate, if you will,
Right.
where you're using your power of persuasion to compel people to do what you want them to do, which is hopefully get them to help you end up toward your North Star.
Right.
So communication is like the most important thing, and it doesn't matter if you're an engineer or a communications major, or someone in between. You need to be able to articulate.
Right. Totally.
Even in a workplace like this, you have to be able to get people to go, yeah, I back that idea, and get everyone to rally behind it. Those are the most compelling things that we do. So I tell my kids, hey, go for a liberal art degree where you're really well versed in a lot of things and able to communicate well, or even just English.
Right.
Like, I don't want them to be an engineer and get stuck into like this thing where they wake up 2 years later and go, oh my God, I hate this. Why didn't my dad tell me that engineering sucks? And that's of course not the case for all engineering, but whether it's accounting or these other things that we think are the practical careers to go to,
Right.
they can be miserable dead ends. So what I encourage people to do is be really well versed in a lot of things and open to pursuing the things that are attendant to what they love to do.
Huh.
So it could be marketing. Storytelling is a part of marketing, but it's also its own thing.
Right.
Storytelling, whether it's making movies or writing books. Storytelling is also like, as a marketer, here's this product and I'm going to tell this story and I'm going to get people to be excited about it. All of that comes back to how you communicate and how you are able to package your ideas up and present them in palatable ways.
Do you have any like tips, advice, or like resources you'd recommend for people to look into to improve their communication?
I think an easy way, because you could do this on the bus or in the back of a car, is watch TED Talks. There's just so many awesome things, and it's 18 minutes or less. And basically what you get is somebody that's able to tell a story and excite you in a fairly short amount of time. And so if you watch 100 TED Talks, you start to get the sense of the pacing, the visual props that we use, the stepping stones that you create to deliver someone from one mindset to another, because that's what you're doing in a TED Talk. You're like taking this audience and taking them on a journey and then delivering them someplace else where they walk out or they put the phone away and go, wow, that was pretty rad. I had never considered that, or I should consider that for my life. That's an easy way. I read tons of books, so that's the way I go about doing it, but I also watch the TED Talks. So I combine those two.
Right.
Like, I'm constantly trying to edify myself and learn, because I'm just a student. I'm a perpetual liberal arts student, even though I studied economics and poli-sci in college. I know nothing about either of those two subjects. Yeah.
Very cool. One other thing that I feel like a lot of people, some people face is I kind of call it like the battle of the internal versus the external, where you have this internal idea or maybe belief or like gut feeling of what you want to do, but then externally there's all these pressures, whether it's like your parents say you should do this, society said you should do this, your friend on Instagram is living life that way. There's like all these external things that are telling you how you should live your life. And I was curious if you had any advice on how to conquer that, sort of like really following what you want to do versus maybe letting your parents control or society control how you go about living your life.
Yeah, that's a really tough one, because if you are a part of a tight-knit family, that parental influence is more significant.
Yeah.
If you're part of a broken family, then it's less significant, right? And you're actually able to, in some ways, make decisions that aren't influenced by the two parents telling you. Like when I was a kid, it was, you can do anything you want, but we think you should be a doctor or a lawyer, or something practical. I was like, yeah, that's not really what I want to do.
Yeah.
And then when I was racing, they were like, you know, when are you going to get serious about whatever? And then I remember when I won the world championships, my parents were actually at the race and they kind of couldn't believe it. And I remember my mom saying to me, you know, your dad and I were talking, and if you wanted to move home and just train and pursue this thing, we'd be totally game. And I was like, yeah, but it's already too late for that, Mom. Like, I've already figured it out. I've got all this stuff balanced, and I made it happen without that. I appreciate it. But we allow our parents to do a lot of things because they've helped us immensely.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, you have to be able to feel what's right. And a lot of times we don't pay attention to literally our own biorhythms and our own chemical responses to things. We think that we're supposed to do this thing so that we do it, and we kind of tense up, but we don't. We don't realize that we're actually feeling bad doing that. You know, sometimes you're in a relationship where you feel bad, but you don't know how to get out.
Yeah.
Or you're at a job where you just know it's not quite right. And so we have to be in tune with our own inner chipmunk that's telling us, like, yo, dude, this is lame.
Yeah.
This doesn't feel right. So you have to be open to listening to your body, even the biorhythms. Like, I've worked at places where I would just get an email from the boss and not even read the email and have a physical response to it. Like, oh, this is gonna be terrible.
Yes.
And these are the stories we tell ourselves that are inaccurate, because a lot of times it's not terrible. But you're in a bad place if your response to getting that email or that text, without knowing the contents, is your body's responding to it. You're in the wrong place.
Yeah, you gotta get out.
So yeah, I think we need to know ourselves better, and we are often don't give ourselves the silence, the time to, like, go to Joshua Tree and take some mushrooms by yourself and go chill with nature. And then as you're coming out of that, like, listen to the messages that are provided you, and you have the clarity. There's not the noise around you. You're not inundated with advertisements or your bro telling you to take another shot. You're by yourself, getting in touch with your inner chipmunk, which is expressing to you truth.
Right.
And so if you can silence and get in touch with that aloneness of that isolation, in that isolation, truth comes out. And a modern day way of doing it is meditation.
Right.
Mine is if I'm paddling or if I'm riding my bike, like, I can escape into my own inner isolation, and I can evaluate if I'm on the right track or doing the right thing. Some people get high, and then, you know, their iriness, the ganja gods will express to them. They'll say, hey, you're feeling this way, you're feeling paranoid or whatever because you're not on the right track. So people use ganja to you know, get these messages.
Right.
Meditation's probably the most practical way, but it's hard.
Yeah.
It's like the hardest thing you can do. Because
Thoughts start zooming in.
yeah, you're like sitting there all Indian style and trying to be quiet, and then, you know, this endless array of post-it notes or whatever goes through your head of the things you're supposed to do or you wanted to do, or why didn't I do that?
Right.
And that's not meditation. So I think we need to figure out and know ourselves well enough, and we don't give ourselves the chance to know ourselves.
Yeah.
Because if we do, like,
Well,
it becomes
it'll
pretty
work
clear.
out, yeah.
It's your conscience.
Yeah.
Like,
You gotta listen to that inner voice. And
Yeah.
most of the time when you do, at least I feel like from my experience, like, it works out. Like, if
Totally.
you go against it, all of a sudden you're like, crap, why didn't I do that?
yeah, or, you know, because you made the wrong turn, you also got a speeding ticket, or you bumped your head, or you got stitches, you know, or you ran into somebody you didn't want to see. Whatever it is, you know, when those things are happening, you're not on the right track.
Right.
But we gotta know ourselves, like know what we love. Because if you don't even know what your North Star is. You're just
Right.
kind of foundering through life. And you don't want to do that. You want to be in control of that destiny and know where you're going.
Yeah.
So yeah, meditation, some sort of isolation.
Right. Cool. So before I ask my last question, I was curious if people want to get in touch with you or like follow, see sort of what you're up to. What's the best way they can sort of see what's going on with you, if you want?
This is where I'm supposed to say like my Instagram handle. I have too many Instagram handles because I still do crazy things. Like I have a cycling persona that because I put on crazy events for cycling and I race
Belgian
my
Waffle
bike.
Ride.
Yeah,
Crazy
that thing
thing.
keeps growing a lot. I'm IBEMMX. That's one of them. Creative Disruption is another. But like if someone had an important question about their life, they could reach out to me at mmx@nixon.com.
Cool.
But you can Google someone and find out quite a lot about them or how to contact them. So
Yeah. Very cool. So my last question is
I thought that was the last one. No? Oh,
No,
that was your
before.
penultimate question.
Exactly.
Okay.
Got it. So the ultimate question.
Yeah.
This show's about helping people find their direction, and I'm a huge believer that it's all about taking action. You can't just sit there and think about it. That's not really going to get you anywhere. You got to start doing something. So I was curious, what is something you would recommend people can do in the next 24 to 48 hours to start finding direction in their life?
Well, easy things like just go to TED Talk. Back to that.
Yeah.
And like look at a subject matter that seems appealing, and then just not only for that subject matter to edify yourself, but like how does that person present themselves and their idea, and what do you like about that, or what do you not like about that particular person? The other thing is, like if you have a general inkling of something that you want to do that you're excited about, Google that and try and find a book, like a physical book that you can read at night that's gonna help inform where it is that you're going. And you can go on Amazon and find that and maybe get it delivered by tomorrow, so
Yeah.
fit within your
quickly.
48 hours. But those are the easiest things. I would say a little bit more difficult, but probably as important or more important, is go find that alone time doing whatever it is. Go for a hike, go sit on the cliff, meditate, go sit at the drums. Like I like to do that too.
Escape somewhere.
And listen to what comes up. Just whenever you're alone, or force yourself to be alone. Like I used to drive to Joshua Tree and go there alone and go on 30-mile runs and do other things that I probably can't talk about now, but all by myself in order to get in touch with my higher self. So if you can find ways to be quiet and listen to yourself, sometimes you'd be surprised what you hear, and then let those messages guide you.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for
Right
hanging out
on.
with us today.
That was cool.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you.